What is speaking in tongues? Speaking in tongues is defined as a form of glossolalia in which a person experiencing religious ecstasy utters incomprehensible sounds that the speaker believes are a language spoken through him or her by a deity. What is glossolalia? Incomprehensible speech in an imaginary language, sometimes occurring in a trance state, an episode of religious ecstasy, or schizophrenia. And according to TOD.com, glossolalia is fabricated, meaningless speech. When spoken by schizophrenics, glossolalia is recognized as gibberish. In charismatic Christian communities, glossolalia is sacred and referred to as speaking in tongues or having the gift of tongues. In Acts of the Apostles, tongues of fire are described as alighting on the apostles, filling them with the Holy Spirit. Allegedly, this allowed the apostles to speak in their own language but be understood by foreigners from several nations. Uttering gibberish that is interpreted as profound mystical insight by holy men is an ancient practice. In Greece, even the priests of Apollo, god of light, engaged in prophetic babbling. The ancient Israelites did it. So did the Jansenists, the Quakers, the Methodists, and the Shakers. To summarize, speaking in tongues is a made-up language that has zero meaning, aka complete bullshit. Side note, if you or someone is claiming that they genuinely hear voices or that some other being is speaking through them, that could be a sign of mental illness and should be taken seriously. I've included some resources down below. Now, what does speaking in tongues sound like? Anyone who ever speaks in tongues sounds a little bit different from the next person who speaks in tongues. So no one can tell that you're doing it wrong because there's no right way to do it. To me, it sounds like a mix of parcel tongue from Harry Potter mixed with trilling of the tongue. Here's a few examples. So why am I even talking about this? And why, after explaining that I think it's total BS, would I make a tutorial on how to do it? Well, I remember what it was like being a little girl growing up in church and being the one who couldn't speak in tongues yet, like my friends could. I was guilted and shamed for not being able to do it. In the arms of the angel, fly. I should mention, good on you for not being able to speak in tongues, because again, it is complete BS. It's normal if you feel a little bit weird about all this. It makes sense that just opening your mouth and letting the Holy Spirit speak through you seems like complete lunacy, because it is. And I'm not encouraging anyone to do this. That being said, if you're in a situation where other people around you are speaking in tongues and you're expected to, but you're not at a point where it's safe and you don't feel comfortable enough to tell them that you think it's bullshit, I might be able to help. If you're a kid who's being forced to go to church, being shamed by churchgoers, or pressured by your family to speak in tongues, I got you. I'm also aware of people who are not Pentecostal, but they are Christians, and they have never been exposed to speaking in tongues, and they're just curious about it. Also why I wanted to make this video. And now, the big reveal. All you do is try to mimic what the other people around you are doing. And that's it. There's a lot of shuns and da-da-da-da-das and bonus points if you control your tongue, because then you really look like you're on fire for Jesus. I'll give you an example, and I haven't done this in years, so this should be interesting. Yeah, a lot of shunning and yeah, there's a lot of la la la's too. Obviously, I'm out of practice. I mean, thankfully. And remember, speaking in tongues is literally speaking gibberish, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. I also remember when I was in church, someone would speak in tongues and then a few minutes later, someone else would interpret it, saying that they heard from God and that God was speaking through them.
Most everyone is mad here.
If you're currently being indoctrinated and your family is forcing you to go to church and this is what you're experiencing, I wish you nothing but the best, and I hope you can get out of that situation soon. I hope you find this tutorial helpful if you are forced to do this and you are an unwilling participant. Speaking in tongues isn't anything but madness, coercion, and shaming people into doing it. I really feel that people who speak in tongues know deep down that what they're doing is a fraud, but assume they are the only ones who feel that way. Think, the emperor's new clothes. In that sense, it's just a way of pledging your allegiance to the church, virtue signaling to others in your group that you share their tribal values. But when your religion asks you to embarrass yourself and lie about it, maybe it's time to rethink your religion. Or religion, period.